That's fine. I didn't even like you that much. Yes, I did. And I don't even care that we're not going to talk anymore. I'm really upset about it. And my glow up is about to go fucking crazy. Okay? That's fine.
Hey, the way she's feeling right now, I think most people have felt that way at some point. You go for a job, you get the initial response back from a recruiter saying that they're interested. You're like, wow, cool. Why? Because you've applied for 30, 40, 50 different jobs and didn't hear back. And you finally find this one that you are excited about and you got, feedback from the recruiter. So cool, you're excited about that. Then you go on interview one, you go on interview two, you even go interview three, and you say, yo, this is it. This is the job that I've been waiting on. This is the one. And to her point, you've already kind of mapped out your commute to work. You've already figured out what you're going to do with the kids. You figured out your schedule, how everything's going to, how it's going to be laid out. And then all of a sudden you get the notice that you didn't get the job. Man, that sucks, right? I mean, that sucks. Again, all of us have felt that way at some point. And it's okay to feel that way. Nothing wrong with feeling that way. I would say don't feel that way too long, right? You want to go ahead, process it, take a few hours, a day, or whatever it is to process it. Hell, I wouldn't even take a day. But, if you need to take some time to kind of process it, that's what you go ahead and do. It's okay to feel a little bit disappointed, but you can't stay in that little hole forever, right? You can't stay in that little valley forever. You got to get out of there. You got to get out of there and you got to keep moving. What I would say is that after you've processed it and given yourself some time, I would say at that point you need to, kind of go ahead and look at really what happened, kind of reevaluate, the interview, some of the questions that were asked and how you answered those questions, how you presented yourself in the interview. Maybe there's something that, in terms of how you presented it. The reality is this: once you get to the second and third interview, it's usually not related to your skill set. It's not about whether you can do the job or not. It's not about whether you have a degree or not, whether you have a certain level of experience. They've already screened that stuff out. I mean, they did that in the screening. They did it in the first interview. So if you get to the second or third interview, shoot, they've already, taken care of that stuff. And so oftentimes when you don't get the job, it's not because, you weren't qualified for the role. Normally it's because, maybe they didn't see a good fit. Maybe they thought that this wouldn't be a good long-term role for you. What we hear often, maybe they thought you were overqualified. Maybe they thought there was someone else there. Oftentimes there's a second candidate or even a third candidate there, in the final stages of the interview. And maybe the other person just blew them away. Maybe the manager and that candidate connected in a different way than you guys connected. I like to always say, don't get so caught up in answering the questions and you forget to be likable. Because part of it is kind of trying to figure out, is this a person that I want to be with? That a person I want to work with for 8-10 hours a day, 5-6 days a week? Do we work well? Do I think we work well together? Do I want to be around this person? So again, don't forget to be likable when you start getting into, these interviews, because again, it's not always about your skill set. Sometimes, but not always about your skill set. You can't ask for feedback. In today's world, rarely do you get real substantive feedback. I think from a legal perspective, they're always concerned about whether you're gonna, maybe they're gonna say too much, or you're gonna sue them, or take them to court or whatever it is. So rarely do you get real true feedback, but you can always, ask them when you send a thank you note, because I would still always send a thank you note to say, hey, listen, thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure. And I hope that we have an opportunity to work again. together at some point down the road. I think that's always helpful. Once you've kind of done your own self-evaluation, then I would say you go ahead and start trying to strengthen your own brand. Continue networking, continue reaching out. As you've heard me say before, you never stop hunting. So hopefully this wasn't the only job that you had, in the mix. Hopefully you had some other potentials that were still out there that you have an opportunity to get. But you should always continue to network and continue to keep your brand out there. If there's something you need to do to enhance your resume, yeah, go ahead and do that. If there are some certifications, some things that you need, absolutely go ahead and do that. But what I've always found to be very helpful is every single interview is an opportunity for me to learn something about the organization, something about the leadership, and something about myself. So even though I don't get the job, even though things didn't go the way that I planned, I still look at it in a way to say, all right, what did I learn from it? Right? How do I better position myself going forward so the next interview I have a better chance of getting it? I present myself just a little bit better. And I think if you take that approach, even though you don't get the job, it's okay. It's no big deal. You'll move on to the next one. I know it's disappointing because you put a lot of work, a lot of prep in it. And that's okay. As long as you learn something, as long as you get better and you keep pushing forward is what's most important. So I hope this helps you guys. If I'd love to hear what you guys say, what you guys do in these type situations. So put them in your comments. I appreciate you guys watching. Take care.